this computer. All right. Let me know when you are ready.
Yeah, you want to count down 3, 2, 1, and we both start recording so it'll be easy to line up?
That seems like a great plan. Hold on. System overload. The audio engine was not able to process all the required data in time. That's terrible news.
Sounds like everything's going to work out.
Yeah. Good thing I'm just recording all of it on the video as well. So, okay, here we go. In 3, 2, 1. There we go. All right. Hello and welcome to Eternal Durdles. I'm your host, Zach Clark, and with me as always, Phil Blackman. Man, I almost said Nate there. I was very close.
Even without Nate on the cast, you can still say Nate every time.
Yeah.
Just he's always here even when he's not. Yeah, I think that's good.
I was so close to just rattling off Nate Golian, Phil Blackman.
Since we're doing video, we should probably get as real of a puppet that looks like Nate as possible, just to like have him on screen.
Yeah,
and then we can get like clips of Nate saying stuff, and then just like put it in post.
I'm into that. I like a Muppet Nate. I'm into it. I think that'd be great.
Yeah, Nate, Eternal Durdles with Nate the Puppet.
Yeah, that'd be excellent. We can just have whoever our guest is play Nate.
Oh yeah.
This week's Nate will be.
What a Patreon tier that could be. Be Nate for
you can be Nate for a cast.
Yeah. And then it's just Nate who gets that tier.
That's in the unbanned Necropotence tier for sure.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
All right. Well, so this is the promised rest of Strixhaven, and I guess Strixhaven Commander, and maybe we'll even talk a little bit about the drops that happened today. We got a couple of hot spoilers, so let's get into the Strixhaven stuff.
Yeah, what do we feel like is left that we haven't covered yet?
I don't think we went over any of the gold cards.
So let's do it.
Yeah. Let's just go over the gold cards, and then I have a list that I think I shared with you, but I'll find again real fast of stuff on that I thought was talk aboutable from the Commander set.
Yeah, I think we should talk about the Commander stuff for sure, and then we also have those spoilers today that we should definitely talk about because nothing matters. The world is imploding, and I love it.
Yeah. Okay, so Phil, if you got me on Mythic Spoiler, it is actually not just the gold stuff that we need to talk about. It is after the break. There's a small break, and then it goes to like Mavinda, Jazati, Professor Onyx, Crackle with Power, that line. That's about where we stopped.
Great, let's do it.
All right, so we can pretty much nix out this first row, I think. Do you want to talk about Ecological Appreciation?
Yeah, so it's Ecological Appreciation is search your library for graveyard for up to 4 creature cards with different names that each have a mana value X or less and reveal them. An opponent chooses 2 of them, shuffle those cards into your library and put the rest onto the battlefield. So it is an
exile this card, and it's a sorcery, and it costs 2, a green, and X.
So it's an X spell that works very much like a Gifts Ungiven-y sort of package. And my guess is that before the spoiler, I would have been like, okay, what's the thing that you can do? What's the thing where no matter the combination that you get, you win the game? And then what amount of mana is that? And if that is reasonable, then it will be good as a 1-card win condition. And if it's not, then it will just be unplayed. And my guess is that since Strixhaven has been out for a while and this card has shown up not at all, that either doesn't exist or the mana cost for it is too high.
Well, I'm going to go with it doesn't exist. The main reason is because this card shuffles them back into your deck, which kind of kills any possibility of Gifts Ungiven shenanigans. When you don't have access to those cards in your graveyard or in your hand, at least, I mean, it's just like the same as getting 4 cards that your opponent's going to look at and be like, these 2 are a combo, these 2 are a combo. I'll give you the AA or the BB, but not the AB.
Right. No, I'm saying that if there was a combination, because the cards go right onto the battlefield, if there was the combination of 4 cards that no matter what the pairing they give you, you win the game on the spot, then it is a reasonable line. But since there isn't, I assume that it won't see played. But it means that it's like one of those cards that I can imagine being bulk and then the second that there is like the gifts package that exists for it at like 6 mana, you're like, oh, okay, well, I guess then this is now just a 1-card combo and that deck is broken.
And like watch it slot into food chain or something like that.
And then all of a sudden it's like actually a build around and we're just playing, bug ecological appreciation combo.
Yeah. All right. Well, so hard pass on ecological appreciation for now. Then we've got I think the next one that I could see getting some amount of play is Miele, the Crafty Companion.
I'm surprised that it hasn't shown up at all yet because its text is so similar to Leovold. I guess that it might just be because the can't draw more than 1 card per turn is where Leovold shines. But when a permanent you control being targeted and you draw a card, that ability, I mean, that is part of what makes Leovold really good. But I guess the not being able to tax your opponents in any other reasonable way, then they just don't have to interact, I guess. I don't know. It might also be that it's not tutorable for like D&T and the white decks. But I'm surprised. I thought before we like had several weeks with Strixhaven, I would have for sure thought that this card would show up at least somewhere a little bit, but it's shown up not
like D&T or like maybe the red D&T deck that like then maybe you could pop Luca in occasionally. Like, I mean,
Luca's a 6-drop here.
Yeah, but that's, like sometimes you get to that point of the game and you're like, well, I can slam this Planeswalker. I don't think Luca's all that good. Let's talk about what this card does, actually. Miele, Crafty Companion, costs 2 white and 1 colorless. It's a legendary creature, Fox. Whenever an opponent attacks 1 or more Planeswalkers you control, put a loyalty counter on each Planeswalker you control. Whenever a permanent you control becomes the target of a spell or ability opponent controls, you draw a card. And then Luca, this is a double-faced card, so Luca costs 2 red and 4 colorless. It's legendary Planeswalker Luca. Starts with 5 loyalty. Its +1 is you may discard a card. If you do, draw a card. If that card is a creature that you discarded, draw 2 cards. -2 is return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. It gains haste. Exile it at the beginning of your next end step. And then the -7 ultimate is you get an emblem with whenever a creature enters the battlefield, you may have it deal damage equal to its power to any target. So that's Pandemonium is the card that mirrors. I mean, those are all fine. I think if you get that into play, not like an I win, you almost might many times want to actually just have the creature in play.
I was gonna say like maybe the big red deck. The thing is that if you already have 6 mana Chandra that's uncounterable and just does things that you want it to do. So it's like I could have seen a world where maybe Red Stompy wants the big splashy red walker, but because it can get pierced, I guess it doesn't. It just doesn't work. I don't know. I mean, I would have slam dunked Miele beforehand, but I guess it just goes to show which part of Leovold is actually important, and I guess that is blue.
Yep, it is the blue part. All right, we have. What do you think? Do you think the double-sided Planeswalker, Rowan and Will, are worth talking about?
No,
me neither.
I like what they do, but I don't think so. I think Tempted by the Auric, when it's first spoiled, it's one of those cards where I'm like, this is so close. At 4 mana, it's too much. But if it were just triple blue, it would have been reasonable.
If it were an instant, I would say it's playable.
Yeah.
So I mean, obviously, taking care of a 2020 is a thing. In Strixhaven Limited, it's great because you're just like, oh, nice 9/9. It's mine now because the whole set is just like make a token creature with X +1/+1 counters on it.
Yeah, just being a sorcery as opposed to an enchantment and being the control magic, it's one of those things where it's obviously more powerful because of that, but it's so close. It's so close. I could see a world like in a world where every Pharaoh deck is dominated by Uro, like it's so close, but there's just too much competition at 4.
Yep. Exponential growth as a Infect player, hard pass.
Hard pass. Dude, when Poet's Quill was first spoiled, I was like, Dead Guy Ale is getting the upgrade to be called Dead Poet Society, and it's going to be great because the learn cards, being able to have just like a sideboard of reasonable cards that you want as a freebie, and the fact that Poet's Quill is not the worst.
It's fine.
Lifelink is totally fine. I was like, oh, because you can tutor it and then it tutors itself, you will just constantly have a stream of things to do with your mana. And I was like, I feel like that is where that type of deck wants to be, right? Like they need that type of card advantage. And I thought for sure that it would have been experimented with at least, but it seems like if you're Dead Guy Ailing, people just moved over to Sedgemoor, which
I'm going to tell you, there is one card with Learn in this set that I think could see play.
But it hasn't yet.
And
nothing with Learn to see play.
No, it hasn't. And it's Dreamstrix, and that's in Sea Stompy.
Dreamstrix it's a 3/2 bird for 3 mana, 2 and a blue. When it becomes the target of a spell sacrifice, it's got the illusion text. Mm-hmm. But when it dies, you learn. So,
but it's target of spell, not target of spell or ability, which is a huge difference.
I guess that is true.
That's a huge difference because, like, having your opponent be like, "Oh, well, I'll, tap my land that has some weird effect, and give it +1/+2 or something like that to like kill your creature." That sucks. Yeah. But like
possible,
most of the cards your opponent targets with it are going to be, they're going to be cards that kill creatures with anyhow.
Yeah, it's something that would have killed it even if it didn't have that piece of text.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like not going to lose because it's not going to die because somebody like Teferi bounced it or whatever.
Yeah, and if it's a card that like draws a card or something, it basically whatever that card they cast is countered. So if it's like, kill a creature, draw a card. Not that that's a thing, but like, how about that giant, the giant from what's it called?
Oh yeah, it'll fizzle a Bone Crusher giant,
and it will get countered and go to the graveyard instead of going to the exile pile. So it's something to think about, but like not you need better learn cards, I think, before you want to play this over. And also, Sea Stompy's not like a real deck.
No, I also think that it's tough because it's a 3/2 flyer for 3 mana, and the legacy rate for a 3/2 flyer is 1 mana.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is it's unfortunate for everybody involved, but
not if you're playing with Chalice though. And Sea Stompy would be playing with Chalice.
Sure. Yeah. If you're not playing exactly the best deck.
Yes. The Chalice deck.
The Devil deck.
So these other Conjuration Masteries are all kind of
I saw people experimenting with Conspiracy Theorist in so Blue-Red Delver got a lot of tools in this set. And I saw people initially trying out Conspiracy Theorist as a threat that's also a card advantage engine. Like every time you attack with it, you just go up a card. Right, so it doesn't need to connect, which is nice, and it has a pseudo Arcanist thing where if you like discard a removal spell when you attack, you can then it's like okay, I discard a bolt, I'll bolt your creature before it blocks, and I drew a card, right? So it's similar in that fashion.
At 2 mana, I discounted this card because I just thought it cost more.
Yeah.
So at 2 mana, that's not terrible.
I mean, the upside too of just being able to discard chafe that you don't need later on, it's
like days.
I think the card has shown up and it was playable and the effect is interesting and I could see it finding more homes in the future. It seems like people have just had enough time to recognize that Expressive Iteration is actually the best card for what Blue-Red Delver wants to be doing and is now just taking over as a staple in that shell, whether you're playing like the more aggressive Fairy Dragon versions, or if you're playing Sprite Dragon versions, or if you're playing the more controlling Young Peasy versions. Yeah. But it seems like Expressive Iteration is the thing that's going to make it through the mold. But I could see Conspiracy Theory coming back at some point because it's proven itself as playable in the format. So, get them if you haven't, and you like that style of play.
Yeah. What do you think about Strict Proctor in D&T? What does anybody think about Strict Proctor in D&T?
So
write in the comments below.
The coolest thing that I've heard about Strict Proctor so far is that it's not just creatures; it's any permanent. So you can do the dopey stuff that's actually powerful. Like you have your City of Traders that just doesn't trigger. So you can do cool things like that if you wanted to play I guess like a sort of stompier version. But
what about Dark Depths? Does your opponent just get a free 20/20?
No, because it's not a triggered ability for the Dark Depths to come into play.
Okay, I was like, oh no.
It comes in with the counters. If that wasn't, if Dark Depths was a trigger, people would have been playing Stifle Depths a long time ago.
Sure, that makes sense. Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So Strict Proctor it's one of those things where because it's a permanent, not just creatures, it is pushed in to some extent where I could see it having some amount of busted interaction. But I think that busted interaction needs to be something that is either auto game ending or something that's 0 mana, such as City of Traders type shenanigans. Because I don't foresee this being
I'm thinking that this is
you're actually going to want, but
I'm thinking, it's tough because, right, like this is not a one-sided effect. This is for everybody. I didn't even realize that. I was thinking this was like opponents because everything's been so like no feel baddie like for so long. Only one side feels the pain from my Magic card. That this card actually screws over stuff like Flicker Wisp and stuff like that.
Yeah, and speaking of Death and Taxes, though, I will say that like between this and like Elite Spellbinder, this set has made it so the cards actually do tax as opposed to just saying you can't do something.
Yeah.
Right. Like Sanctum Prelate is in Death and Taxes, but it is not a taxing effect. It is the rule of law. So I like that they have been experimenting more with the taxing effects to maybe level up. In this case, moving it to permanent as opposed to just creature.
Yeah.
It's symmetrical, so you can abuse it as well as opposed to potentially shutting off your opponents. It has more interesting design elements to it that I think you can play with, but. So far, I've only seen it in, meme sort of dreadnought lists.
Yeah. Okay. So I
thought Symmetry Sage and Clever Lumimancer were going to be able to find homes in like blue-white Delver Shell. I thought like a more streamlined blue-white Delver Shell would exist because you've seen that happen before where people play it with like Stoneforge Mystic and stuff, but the second you reveal a Batterskull to your Delver, you're like, what are we doing here? But I thought Symmetry Sage and Lumimancer would be able to push that deck to be another consideration. So you have every flavor of Delver, but none of the flavors of Delver really have white in them because Source to Plowshares and Delver doesn't really work.
It's not a great combo, for sure.
It's not a great combo. But I thought that these cards, like having enough density of essentially 1 mana Delvers in your deck that hit really hard would push it over the top. But turns out that all of the experiments with Lumimancer so far have just proven that if you ever don't have Magecraft to get it in for damage, having a 0 mana thing doesn't really play. Or a 0 mana, 0 power thing doesn't really play. So interesting that it hasn't worked out. I thought it would. But had we done this before the set has had some play, I would have guessed that Symmetry Sage would have seen some amount of fringy play as like Delvers 5 through 8. But turns out that that's just straight up not the case.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I agree. I agree that's probably not the case, but we do have like a relatively big tournament coming up in several months. People might just be hiding their tech.
If people are hiding their tech and not getting any practice before they just spike a tournament, all the power to you. Let's talk about Test of Talents.
Let's talk about Test of Talents.
So Test of Talents has shown up a little bit. It's gotten some screen grabs that have been pretty impressive. But at the end of the day, I think people who are smarter than I were correct in that it is a fringy, reasonable card to bring in if you expect a metagame of Show and Tell and Doomsday, but it is not the main deckable slam dunk because it's only instant and sorcery.
Yeah.
So it's reasonable, but it's when I first saw it, I was like, this is awful. I hate that this exists. It's going to destroy me. And so far, I just barely see it. So
yeah, it seems like a fine sideboard card. It lives in that zone that Spell Pierce and Flusterstorm live in, right? Where you're like, which one do I bring in? Do I need both? Should I bring in both? Now Test of Talents exists. Do I do that? It is a hard counter, which is nice. But you do run into those like, It'd be great if it was like, and remove all the ones on the stack too.
Wait, if it also just had a Mind Break Trap ability tacked onto it, it's already powerful enough. The lobotomy is free.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So let's talk. Where was the? I think Plumb the Forbidden. After playing with a little bit with Sedgemoor Witch and Flusterstorm and all, and the Magecraft cards that go off, I could see Plumb the Forbidden being something reasonable. I think Nate had it right when he was like, I think Plumb the Forbidden is actually reasonable if you're not playing blue cards.
Okay.
So I think Sedgemoor Witch could be the backbone. I mean, Sedgemoor Witch is good enough. I was so wrong when we covered Sedgemoor Witch the first time. I was low on it when we covered it. And after playing with it a bit, I find that it is actually quite good in that it does do the Monastery Mentor impression that everybody has talked about. But the fact that it does it in black gives you a whole different...
It just allows you to not play white. Right?
It moves what? Yeah, it moves the ability of what the deck is capable of that Mentor can't, because Mentor's slanted in white. That Sedgemoor Witch just like opens the door for any of those builds that you wanted, where your mana would have been too stretched to get white in there.
Yeah, I mean, think about playing. So you were playing Esper Mentor, but what about Grixis Mentor? Like where you actually want to actively cast your lightning bolts, right?
There is something to be said that could essentially Esper Mentor just ported over into Grixis using Sedgemoor, which could absolutely be a viable strategy to play with because it is powerful enough. And the fact that it plays just as well with things like Cabal Therapy and all of the parts of Esper Mentor that have worked. And it's a human warlock. So if you wanted to do like the of one mind stuff, it does all of the same action, because it is also a human. So there's just a lot of crossover in what makes Mentor very good. The obvious downside is that the creatures that it produces are not as threatening. Having Prowess Monks is more threatening than Pests, but the difference of being in black and having more spells that are proactive, I mean, the next list that I plan on trying out is a bunch of Sedgemoor Witches and a bunch of Seagate Stormcallers, because both cards want Cabal Therapy, and that is something where your mana would have been stretched into 3 colors to do that with Mentor, but here you actually can maneuver and you're in the 2 colors that you want, and then you can have whatever splash you'd like to have. And it's nice to be able to play essentially a Monastery Mentor with Cabal Therapy and Pyroblast. So I'm not far off on teching out a Plumb the Forbidden as a one of to test it out to see if it works, because the copy ability is really powerful.
So I only have 2 more cards from this list.
We can jump solve the equation, because it does exactly what we thought it would do, and nobody's surprised that it does the thing it does, and it is just totally a thing that exists. Cool.
Wait, well, one quick question about the Sedgemoor Witch Plumb the Forbidden situation.
Yeah.
Because I haven't actually cast these on Arena, so I don't know. Can you just like go infinite, as it were, with this card, with this combo?
No, so as the additional cost, it's the cost is to sack because it's part of a cost you can't. But one thing that I've been noticing is people who have been doing the chain of small combo decks, right? The fact that nowhere in their 75 have they had Sedgemoor Witches is
seems
somewhat confusing. Not just because Sedgemoor Witch is good and does similar things to what Witherbloom Apprentice does, but Sedgemoor Witch also combos with Chain of Smog. If you Chain of Smog yourself with Sedgemoor Witch on the table, you just make an infinite Empty the Warrens.
Yeah. That's
so
plenty good.
It's plenty good. And
that's turn 1 Dark Ritual Sedgemoor Witch, turn 2, or turn 1 Dark Ritual Sedgemoor Witch, and Chain of Smog. Game over.
There's a world where a lot of decks just don't deal with an early game Empty the Warrens, right? A turn 1, turn 2 Empty the Warrens. It's just good enough to get there.
There are plenty of decks. I would venture to say almost every deck.
The fact that Witherbloom Apprentice dips you into green might actually mean that there is a whole world with Chain of Smog combo that just revolves around Chain of Smog with the Witch, and then you play non-green, and you can move into more combo colors, or just be essentially have a cleaner mana base, just being straight blue black, and like doing all the same things. It's different in that you need the turn, you need to be able to attack, but knowing that when you do untap an attack, it is always lethal because they're infinite tokens that you made. It's not, oh, I need to attack for a couple of turns because you have blockers. So if you can make that same window that you were doing with Witherbloom, even though the game doesn't end immediately, so if you pass the turn against a combo deck, like they could just nut you. But I could see a world where there is a deck that revolves around Witch Chain of Smog instead of the Apprentice and just makes infinite pests and kills you that way.
Also, like, let's just back up to a world where let's say it's post sideboard, you do this against Rug Delver on turn 1. You snap it off, right? And it works. And then they like follow up with a way to get rid of your
if they blazing volley you, that's very bad.
You still lose. You still beat them. You have infinite life. They have no other way to beat you.
That is also very true.
Like it's still very good.
We're on the deck you plan at that point.
Yeah, like even you don't even have to be on the deck you plan. Like eventually they're gonna just run out of things to do. Like they're gonna have a bunch of creatures. And you're going to be like, okay, well, like how many of your Force of Wills can you use here? Like I'm going to start casting spells.
There's also the part where if you can clear the cards that would otherwise stop the combo, when you Chain of Smog, I mean, you do get to throw the last copy of Chain of Smog.
Yeah, right at your opponent. So they're at 5 cards in hand, maybe 8. Let's say you got to go first. So they have 6 cards in hand on their first turn. That means that if you have infinite life, it's just 6 turns until like you've played a bunch of land, they've played a bunch of land, and they can't, like, every creature they draw is a blank. Everything, like you can start playing around Daze and Flusterstorm and all those other cards, like, I
mean, we're obviously to some degree we're in magical Christmas land here, but an example of how getting away from green, which is very color intensive with the Witherbloom Apprentice, you could just play blue-black, Sedgemoor Witch, Chain of Smog, and then you also can get something like Spellseeker to find the Chain of Smog, and that means that you're available to play Soul Lands.
Yeah.
Which can be that's like the type of difference in deck building that can make it so that people have been trying out Witherbloom Chain, and it's possible that the Chain of Smog deck that is actually the correct one is like a blue-black Sedgemoor Witch deck where if you don't combo them, you also incidentally can just make a board.
Yeah.
Right. Like the backdoor plan is built into the deck naturally. And just being able to have those sort of things. And it's like, if you already want Cabal Therapy, there's like worlds where, I'm going to Spellseeker. If it lands, I'm going to tutor up my Chain of Smog. I'm going to Cabal Therapy it, getting rid of whatever you're thinking. And then I'm just going to set up my play. And I could see that being a reasonable thing. And I'm surprised we haven't tried it yet.
All right. Well, okay. So I'm going to go to my last 2 cards, but you might have more. I think we should talk about Kasmina.
You think so?
I just because it's a 3-mana Planeswalker. Look. I know Nate's not here anymore, but we still got to talk about 3-mana Planeswalkers.
Okay, yeah. We can do it for Nate. We can pour one out for Nate.
Gotta talk about 3-mana Planeswalkers for Nate. Don't sleep on 3-mana Planeswalkers. He always says. So
the difference with Kasmina is that you're going to read the abilities. Read the abilities though through a lens that isn't just win more.
Oh, 100%. Look, making a 2/2 when it comes down, not great, right? Scry 1 for 3 mana. The best you're gonna get out of this, I think, in most scenarios is Scry 1, gain 4 life for 3 mana, right? Like
the
that's
difference
not
is that
great.
the Planeswalkers that it's like if you land any of the walkers that see play in Legacy, you should already be so far ahead that it doesn't matter. Or you're on a board where you're just trying to protect them anyway. And so it's like, let's say you land a Narset, unless everything is already going your way, if you were to look at the top 4, see Kasmina or see a removal spell to protect the Narset, you're taking the removal spell. I don't see the like, I get that being able to reuse those types of abilities on Narset and whatever is good, obviously, right? Being able to move it back up to go again. But it's just so much your peanut butter with your chocolate,
Well, here's why we talk about these 3-mana Planeswalkers, because we have to be able to delineate the idea between something like Oko and something like Kasmina, right? Like as a listener, you should be able to look at a 3-mana Planeswalker and say, yeah, not this one, you know? Or you see a Teferi and you're like, oh, great. Or you see Oko and you're like, yeah, this is obviously a problem, you know? Whereas Kasmina, you should be able to look at and be like, this isn't doing it for me.
Now, there is a world where if they print in Modern Horizons 2, the spoilers of which we'll get to, and obviously they're very happy to make more busted cards that are just going to implode Legacy, that if they do give us another busted 2-mana Planeswalker that just does everything and protects itself, you can just go curve 2-mana Walker into 3-mana Walker and then just, you know, plus it into Oblivion. So
what about 1-mana Walker? What do you think? Yeah,
I'm not saying this world that Kasmina could never show up, but it is never, like, Kasmina's never going to be the star.
No.
And I don't think just give yourself more loyalty. If you're if you have the luxury of playing Kasmina, you're either playing a meme deck or you've already won.
Yeah.
A card I do want to talk about, though, let's talk about Cody.
Cody.
So Cody has a lot of text. Essentially, it's a 1/4 for 3 mana. It's a legendary artifact creature.
Oh,
you pay 4, you tap it, you make Rainbow. The next spell you play Cascades. Cool. But there's a line of text that's smothered in the middle up towards the top of its text box that says you can't cast permanent spells.
Yes.
So what I want to do is I want to play Cody, and I want to find the cheapest donate possible and give it to my opponent.
Ooh.
And then no matter what they do to try and remove the Cody, I'm gonna fight over that. I'm just gonna lock them out of ever casting anything else, and just fight over.
I like it.
So I'm gonna play my Flusters. I'm gonna play all of the stuff that just stops them from killing Cody, and then they are just locked out from playing anything that would otherwise kill
I think your cheapest donate is actually donate, and then also Harmless Offering. But then you have a deck with 8 donate spells.
Well, I wonder if there's a donate, like, yeah, there's donates that are bad. Man, there's no, when they print the donate that's just donate target permanent with converted mana cost 3 or less, we're game. We're doing it.
Oh God.
All right, I think that's it. I think that's it.
I have one more, and this is another like poured out for Nate here. We've got Extus, Eric Overlord.
Oh yeah.
So he's a 4-mana 2/4 with double strike. His Magecraft
It's Lord Voldemort.
Yeah, dude, it's Voldemort indeed.
Wait, we're not supposed to say his name. That's bad. We recorded it.
We're done. We're done.
It's over.
Anyhow, whenever you so Magecraft, return target non-legendary creature card from your graveyard to your hand. That's fine. But also then you, on the other side, is a double face card. Awaken the Blood Avatar. It is 6 colorless, 1 red, 1 black. As an additional cost to cast a spell, you may sacrifice any number of creatures. This spell costs 2 less for each creature sacrificed that way. Each opponent sacrifices a creature, create a 3/6 black and red avatar token with haste, and whenever this creature attacks, it deals 3 damage to each opponent.
So there have been a lot of cards that have the Blood Avatar's text of this thing costs 2 mana if you sack 3 creatures.
Yeah.
And all of them have had pretty good abilities and done powerful things when they enter, whether it's just being a huge fat trampler or being a 9/9 flying trampling demon or halving your opponent's life total.
None of these things sound like a 3/6 that lava spikes your opponent when it attacks, though.
Right. But at the same time, we've seen this effect before, and I don't know if a 3/6 that lava spikes and makes your opponent sack a dude is enough to put that type of effect over the top.
It is 3 things. You got to give it that. And it's not a 3/3 that does it. It's a 3/6, so it's probably going to live.
Totally. I mean, it's a 3/6. The other ones that I'm talking about are like Demon to Death's Gate. That's a 9/9. You have the Pirate Giant. That's a 7/5. That also lets you sack artifacts in addition to creatures, so it's almost easier. And then you have the big dude from Dominaria. That's a 7/6. That when it ETBs, you half your opponent's life total or something. So size has never been an issue with these things. It's just about trading your resources. It's about trading your board and spending 2 mana to get this thing. You also have that dragon that you can pay black and sack 2 creatures and just rebuy it from the yard for black. That also has seen 0 play ever. So we've seen the effect of 2 mana, sack a bunch of your board, get this big threat. And it's just never been good enough for Legacy. And I don't know why this would be any different. But I would welcome
it is in colors that have nothing better to do, as I like to say.
Totally.
Dead guy ale.
I would welcome this type of effect being something that a deck can do, because I think if you can give reason for people to play Gravecrawler outside of Hogak, that'd be cool, right? Give another cool recursion deck something to be doing that isn't just trying to play Bridge from Below. I'm into it. I don't see that happening. Exodus is kind of just flavor text to me on top of the Blood Avatar when it comes to this type of stuff. It wants you to be playing both creatures and spells. The mana cost is exceptionally prohibited.
Yep.
If it's at 4 mana, it's legendary without an ETB effect, so you can just Karakas it. I don't really see where this is playing. I doubt we'll ever see it. I would be happy if one day it did.
Yep. All right. Well, let's unless you have any other creatures or cards from Strixhaven that you think need to be talked about.
I think we can talk about the new cards that are actually going to see play.
Well, let's talk about the commander cards first. I have something like 15 of them to talk about.
Let's do it.
14 of them to talk about. So I'll do the classic. I'll read it off, and then you tell me what you think. Audacious. Yeah. I
mean, we've lived with these too for a little bit, right? So
yeah. Audacious Reshapers. This is a 2 and 1 red for a human creature, a creature human artificer. Tap, sacrifice an artifact, reveal the top card of your library until you reveal an artifact card. Put that card on the battlefield and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. And then it deals damage to you equal to the number of cards revealed this way. My thought here was possibly in the red Stompy Chalice decks.
I mean, that's literally every card ever, though. Right?
Yeah, I mean, hey, it's just another option for those decks.
They have so many options.
They do. And like, look, they're not all good. This might not be playable, but I just want to throw it out there as a card that might see play based on, like, maybe you want to get weird and throw some, like, 9 casting costs. You know, like you want to put, like, Trinus Golem, whatever that is, that giant 9/9 that, like, turns into 3/3/3s if it dies.
Getting weird. I'll happily terminus your board.
Yeah. All right. Then we got Brenna the Demagogue. It is a legendary creature, bird warlock for 1 white, black, flying. It's a 1/3, and it says whenever a player attacks one of your opponents, if that opponent has more life than the other player, an attacking player draws the card, and you put 2+1/+1 counters on a creature you control.
So you know what you just read in terms of Legacy? You read a 3 mana 1/4. Whatever its stats are.
I read a 3 mana 3/5. That draws a card. That draws a card.
Does it?
Yeah. When you attack, it draws you a card. The attacking player draws a card. So it again, this is like Dead Guy Ale. You have this thing, now you have a little bit of card draw. I don't think it's amazing, like I said, but it's there.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the rate for an Ophidian has to be
better than an Ophidian for sure, right?
I think the threshold for Ophidian to be legacy playable now is Dreadhorde Arcanist.
Sure. Well, keep this in mind. This isn't when this creature attacks, it's when any creature attacks.
That's fair.
Yeah, so you don't have to. You can get value out of this the turn it comes into play by attacking with your Bob or whatever. Now your Bob is a 4/3, and you just drew another card with Bob.
Dude, you being able to tap out on turn 2 and turn 3 without your guy dying I love it.
All right, so next is Vayne the Broker. He is 2 and a black. Legendary creature, human warlock, and he has several abilities. First one is tap, sacrifice creature, put 2+1/+1 counters on target creature. Another one is tap, remove a counter from a creature you control, create a treasure token. The next one is sacrifice an artifact, create a 2/1 flying black inkling creature with, and then the third one is pay 4, so that's 1 black and 3 colorless, untap Vayne the Broker.
I would love it if Legacy was a format where something synergistic and cute like this could exist, but since it's not,
it doesn't seem like it right now, for sure. But this has a lot of text, and
I think it's so cool. I think the card is so cool. I would love it if it was playable, but it isn't.
I mean, look, trade. What is it? Trading Post. Trading Post does not see play in Legacy, right?
Right.
All right. So next up is Keen Duelist. 1 and a black for a human wizard. It's a 2/2. At the beginning of your upkeep, target opponent each. You and target opponent each reveal the top card of your library. You each lose life equal to the value of the card revealed by the other player. Each of you put the card revealed into your hand. So this is like an opposite version of Dark Confidant, where you can just play. This could be a card in your black show and tell deck, and you like just hit. Oh, look at that! I'm gonna brainstorm, and I'll put my what's called Emrakul on the top. Slam you for 17.
I mean, you could make this a Eureka. I don't remember the last time.
And you're getting to draw a card one way or the other, right?
When was the last time a symmetrical Dark Confidant ever saw play, though? I've registered Duskmantle Seer at a sanctioned Magic event.
Rip to Tim, who went deep and bought like a box, like a 1,000 count box full of Duskmantle Seers.
You know what happened to me when I played Duskmantle Seer once? My opponent flipped a Thragtusk, took 5, and then played Thragtusk and gained 5.
Yeah, that happens.
You love to see it.
Yeah, you love to see it. All right, so next up is Layla, the Blade Reforged. This is a 2 colorless, 1 red mana Spirit Warrior. It's got haste. It's a 2/2. Whenever Layla, the Blade Reforged attacks, exile the top card of your library. You may play that card. Whenever you exile one or more cards from your library and or your graveyard, put a +1/+1 counter on Layla.
So I have seen this card in action. It was pretty strong, but it was fringy enough that it doesn't quite get there. I mean, let me preface. It was put into a Delver deck. The versions that I saw, they were all Delver decks, because the best thing to, whenever you're trying out a new card, just put it in a Delver shell.
See if it works, yeah.
But it was playing it alongside Relic of Progenitus. That way you could continuously get a +1/+1 counter every time. And then you also incidentally get to hose graveyard decks, main board. And it was powerful. But it wasn't game breaking. Like the card, even when you were doing your thing, it was good against specifically like if you are playing against the lightning bolt and get it out of range in time, right? But that's asking a lot.
Yeah.
Whereas it's like, all right, well, if it's against the Swords to Plowshares deck, it's just not going to do anything. It dies to all of the black removal. I get the argument of like, dies to removal isn't real, and this is it does provide some card advantage. It's not absurd if you see this across the table from you. It can be powerful. If you see a deck that's playing both aggressive and playing Relic of Progenitus, it's probably a Layla deck. The other thing that I saw was people were experimenting with this alongside Thought Lash or whatever the card is, the blue enchantment at 4 mana.
Yep. Oh yeah. That's very good. That's I win combo right there.
That just pumps this thing to be the size of your deck if you want it to. So you have another creature to pair with Thought Lash alongside Thassa's Oracle to be a pseudo win condition. Not the worst. It's not going to be great, but it's another thing that you can do with the Thought Lash deck if you're into that sort of thing.
I put this solidly in the realm of the red Stompy decks. So yeah, that's definitely a different path than I had expected. All right, next is Sproutback Trudge. It is a 7 colorless and 2 green creature, Hold on, I'm not trolling you. Fungus Beast, it's a 9/7. This spell costs X less, where X is the amount of life you gain this turn. Trample, at the beginning of your next end step, if you gain life, you may cast this from your graveyard.
I liked this in like a Soul Sisters thing, but like, if you're doing the Soul Sisters thing, you're exactly one person in the world.
Yeah. I don't know that there's a spot for this ever, but you know, I had to bring it up because of Hogak. Hogak being a card that you can get back from your graveyard.
Yes.
And I just thought it was worth mentioning. I also, all of these cards, these are the most powerful cards that I could find in Commander. So I at the end, I want to state my thesis about the current Commander situation. But we'll continue on. Vayne Witch Coven. Vayne Witch Coven is a 2/1 black vampire warlock with menace, 3/3. Whenever you gain life, you may pay black. When you do, return target creature from your graveyard to your hand. So whenever you gain life, you can raise dead.
Again, it's one of those things where I think it would be really like all of these cards scream Nate to me, right? Like they're creature recursion value cards that don't do anything when they hit the table and die to everything.
Yeah, and that's the first half of my thesis.
I mean, it gives me, like, looking over these cards without Nate on the cast is giving me an appreciation for how he appreciated cards that had drama to them, that can do cool things, and there's tension built in, and you want to be able to do those things and feel rewarded for doing those things. But Uro exists.
Yeah. Yeah,
and, you know, like it's unfortunate that it comes down to that, because cards like this seem awesome. Every time you gain life, pay black, draw a card, essentially a regrow. It's like it just pick a creature out of here. It seems awesome.
But what if you pick Uro?
It just can't. It's like unfortunate that it just was like, you know. It's like heartbreaking, but you know.
All right. So next is Veyran, Voice of Duality. Magecraft, he gets +1/+1 till end of turn. He's a 2/2 for 1, a blue, and a red. And then if you cast or copy an instant sorcery that if casting or copying a instant or sorcery causes ability to trigger from a permanent you control, that ability triggers an additional time. So basically it gets +2/+2. Am I right?
Yeah, it doubles up your Magecraft abilities. So it is powerful in that it can hit really hard.
Yeah.
The difference, though, is that it's a 3-mana 2/2 without haste.
It's a 3-mana 2/2 without haste. But let's walk into Magic Christmas Land here. What if you have your Sprite Dragon? What if you have Young Peasy? You know, all these things. What you need, what this guy needs, is free spells. Like Get Probe doesn't exist anymore. So it's a little rough.
Right. And it is excellent with all those cards on the table. But if you have those cards on the table, you don't need another threat, right?
You probably do not.
It is
a win more situation.
It's a step removed. Like, it's very good if you already have the thing on the table that wins you the game.
But I will say that this card is the most expensive card out of all of the Commander cards so far, right? That I've picked. It's somewhere like $14. I don't know if that's because he's a really cool commander or because people are speculating on him.
People love the doubling up.
Yeah.
Anything that doubles something lets you do it twice.
Yeah.
2-for-1s. People love the 2-for-1 everything. Anything that panharmonicons, you can bet your top dollar it's going to be top dollar.
All right. You mean you bet your bottom dollar it's gonna be top dollar?
No, top dollar, top dollar. So I don't deal in bottom dollars.
But you can bet your bottom buck. It ain't no armadillo, as the Texans would say.
We do need a Freets back in competitive Legacy play.
We do need a Freets, dude. It's been too long.
We need just a Freet tribal Cavern on a Freet.
I don't know if you played Magic when Jins and the Freet were like the only playable creatures.
Dude, all of the Afreet arts are based on my likeness.
Yeah. Yeah, mine too.
Mahatma T. D. Shin is that's just a big fill floating there.
This is
Force of Phil floating.
me with as the if biff a freak. All right. Next we've got Willow Dusk, the Essence Seer. That's 1, a black and a green. It's a Dryad Druid, 3/3, and it says 1 tap, choose a legendary, choose another creature, put a +1/+1 counter on it equal to the amount of life gain this turn, or the amount of life loss this turn, whichever is greater. Activate only as a sorcery. So life gain not as important as the as the life loss, because if you're able to hit somebody and then make one of your creatures bigger, that's kind of where you want to be. I don't think this card's great, but it's in that castable range and it does something unique.
Yeah, I mean this is just entirely unplayable.
Yeah,
yeah, it's like it's a 3-mana 3/3 that doesn't do anything. You have to pay mana to activate its ability, but that activated ability only matters if you've done something substantial in that you've either gained a shit ton of life or lost a shit ton of life in the turn after you got to untap with it. At 3 mana in Legacy, nah.
Fair enough. All right, here's the card I think is the most playable out of all of them. It is Pest Infestation. This is XX in green. It's a sorcery. It says destroy up to X target artifacts or enchantments. Create twice X 1/1 black and green pest tokens. We all know what pest does.
All right, so it's 3 mana, sorcery speed, disenchant, make 2 pests.
Sure.
No, make a pest. No, create twice. Create 2 pests.
Yeah, you create 2. You get the X in pests, and you only hit 1 thing.
If you are disenchanting, what deck wants both disenchant and to make bodies that would play this over every cheaper version of disenchant?
That is the question, right? So I thought about this, and in fact, because then I can use these guys to block for like a couple of turns to buy me a little bit more time to get my shit together.
No, I get that. I get that. Like bodies are good. I just don't know where. I don't know.
It's tough because like
be interested.
Wouldn't I would just play Nature's Claim? You know, like it's tough. Like I said. I think going back to like I'll talk about my thesis in a second. I think this is the most playable card from this set.
I mean I think that speaks a lot for the set, considering that it has seen no play.
Yeah. All right. Well, so then we've got Rousing Refrain. This is 3 colorless, 2 red, sorcery. Add 1 red for each card in target opponent's hand. Until end of turn, you don't lose mana as steps and phases end. And you can, and this gets exiled with 3 counters. It's got suspend 3, and the suspend is 1 red and 1 colorless.
I think anything that relies on your opponent cooperating is
tough, right?
It's not tough. I think your opponent having to cooperate makes it bad.
Yeah, I can't
imagine a world. There's just no game to me where if your opponent agrees to let you do a busted thing when their
hand is full, it's a problem. I agree.
Also, if you have 5 mana to dunk into this thing on the first try, what are you trying to cast?
Yeah,
and if you are suspending it,
why are you losing mana to cast this?
Yeah, if you're suspending it, then you're giving them just time to make it not a card. So you're going down a card to give them time to then make it not a card.
Yeah, this is the opposite effect of like a fact or fiction, where your opponent gets to make all the right choices against this card. This card is only good in. I regret including this card. I'm going to put that right.
This card is good in specifically EDH, where you have a player who is their whole deck is just drawing cards and nothing else, and so they can't protect themselves, and so you protect them, and they let you do shit like this.
Yeah,
that's it. That's where this card lives.
All right, here we go. Theoretical Duplication. 2 and a blue. It's an instant. Whenever a non-token creature enters the battlefield under an opponent's control, create a token that's a copy of that creature.
Okay.
How do we feel about this?
How do we feel about this card that is an instant
speed clone, basically, on your opponent's guy that's coming into play?
Right. Again, if you main deck this against an unknown opponent, you don't know what this card says.
Yeah, you shouldn't main deck this, of course. But like, what about show and tell?
So if you play this against show and tell and they put it in Emrakul,
you win.
And then you respond with this and put in Emrakul, that's very good for you.
Yeah. But what if they play Omniscience?
Well, the difference is if they put in Omniscience and then play Emrakul, and then you copy Emrakul, you aren't doing great.
No,
because they annihilate
Goodbye, Emrakul. Yeah.
So theoretical duplication, I think the name is spot on. I think this will only be theory crafted and never actually see the light of day.
Fair enough. All right. Next one is Archaeomancer's map.
I just want to back up 1 second.
Okay.
Because the text of it reading non-token creature it's like if you have like the dream scenario of being like, make a Merit Lage, I'll copy it. You don't even get to do that.
No. Yeah.
And I have found that when it comes to discussing cards, that there is a litmus test of what does it mean against Merit Lage? And I love that all of it is also just assuming that your opponent can't play around it or interact with it in some way that then just kill you. And I feel like all the depths players that I've ever played against are so proficient that if I try and do something cute like this, they would just not walk into it. Yeah. They would just be like, oh, now that I know that you're doing that, I'm just not going to walk into it ever again. And I'm going to pwn you because you have this unplayable in your deck.
Yeah, well, the answer is always like at the end of turn, I will tap all your lands and make Emrakul, and then I will untap or make Emrakul, make Merit Lage, and I'll untap and attack you when you're dead. And you're like, well, that sucked. I guess I lost because my opponent destroyed all my resources and I can't beat that.
I just want to know what was the token that they had in mind where they were like, we need to make sure it says non-token creature.
The limited environment I guess this is an actual Strixhaven. I think it's because this comes in a deck that specifically makes tokens, and a couple of the other decks in this thing also make tokens. So it was probably 4/4s. Like your opponent probably made like 6 4/4s or something like that in one turn, and they just didn't want you to go
that's
nuts.
That's the point, though, right? Like,
yeah, it's EDH for God's sakes, right?
Well, no, I just mean in general. If you have this card, like the point is that you're spending 3 mana on this card that is super hedgy and reliant on your opponent, again, cooperating to make it a card that has text. That if they do the thing that makes it so it would have text, why would you put a clause in there that says, oh, by the way, it doesn't have text?
Yeah, I mean, because the thing is if it didn't have that, it would be at least another. It would have another metric against your Merit Lage. Probably not. But if your opponent emptied the warrens, you could at least get all the dudes.
Yeah, but that also assumes that you have emptied they emptied the warrens when you had 3 open mana and had this card. And
sure, and they didn't like duress it out of your hand, of course.
Yeah, there's something. I mean, it's so funny. It's just so. This card is so funny to me now that we've like gone through it.
All right, the next one is Archaeomancer's Map. 2 and a white. It's an artifact. When Archaeomancer's Map enters the battlefield, search your library for up to 2 basic plains cards, reveal them, put them into your hand, and shuffle your library. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your opponent's control, if that player controls more lands than you, you may put a land from your hand onto the battlefield.
It's an EDH card.
It's just an EDH card. Okay.
There's 3 mana. There's no way. We don't.
Yeah. What I was wondering was, is this like what is the card? It's a 1 mana card that lets.
It's not Tithe.
No, not Tithe. The card that lets you put in cards whenever your opponent plays a land. It lets you play
green enchantment, right?
Yeah, it's a green
burgeoning or something.
Burgeoning. It's burgeoning. I was like, it's burgeoning, but it gives you lands good enough.
No, these are 2 basic planes.
No. All right.
I'm saying no. I think there's Tithe and Gift of Estates that both just let you tutor planes given conditions are correct, which means that you can actually get some colors and whatnot. Those don't see play.
Yeah.
And they're cheaper.
And this is set, and this says basic planes. All right. So final card is Sequence Engine. 2 and a green. It's an artifact. And it says X tap. Exile target creature card with mana value X from a graveyard. Also, and then it says create a 0/0 fractal creature and put X +1/+1 counters activate only as a sorcery.
No way. Zero chance.
You don't think this could see play in like
You are telling me that you're going to put a card in your deck that has a 3-mana cover charge before you get anything in the door. You can't, it's at sorcery speed. You can't even mess with them.
I hope that you're so wrong about this card that we have to have a discussion about it on the level of Dreadhorde Arcanist later on.
Dude,
but
this card has
been, I think you're right.
This card has been available to people for like 3 weeks and is done. This is this is the hill you're going for?
No.
Of all of the cards.
I think this card is again, I built this list weeks ago because you know Nate left the cast, so we didn't have like a little bit of hindsight. Now we have the hindsight, I should say. So this would have probably gotten called by all of us had we had time to deal with it, but we didn't.
Exile a creature with mana value X. There's a mana gate on top of the cover charge. Yeah. You are a high roller, dude. You are trying to get into clubs that I could never even dream about getting into.
Oh, I mean, you're playing this with Veteran Explorer, no doubt. You're gonna have X mana.
You're gonna play against Hogak, and you're gonna look at your sequence engine, and you're gonna be like, wow, if I wanted to get rid of a Hogak, do you know how much mana you would have to spend to get rid of? So they're gonna spend no mana on their Hogak, right?
True.
Let's say it was in the yard, and they are just like, go ahead, try and sequence engine it. Can you do the math on how much mana it would take to actually get rid of that Hogak?
It is a non-zero amount of mana, that is for sure.
So Hogak is 7 mana, right? This is 3 mana. That would mean that at sorcery speed, you would need to spend 10 mana to get rid of the Hogak, and they're spending no mana to play Hogak.
Right now, everybody listening to the cast is like, oh shit.
Because they have
really gone downhill. The cast Nate's gone. The cast is gone.
This should be called missequence engine. Don't even look at this. If you look at your eyes should burn looking at this card. You look at this card and you think to yourself, what has this game become? You look down on these cards. This is the type of card that makes me want to walk away from everything that I've accomplished in life.
Oh man. Okay. So and that does that include the forest in your sideboard or no?
The only reason
that's why the forest is in your sideboard. This
card is bad enough that if I were trying to do the meme of an unplayable in my sideboard to top a tournament again to try and break the internet like I did with Forest, I would actually have a pretty tough debate deciding whether or not Sequence Engine or Forest is the better card to do that with.
Yeah.
The answer is Forest.
I will say this. Forest was better because at least you could gain life with your Deathrite Shamans.
Forest was better because people actually look at it and be like, I guess Forest is playable. Nobody's looking at Sequence Engine and being like, I guess this is the longest amount of time anybody has ever even... We are spending more time talking about Sequence Engine than WotC spent designing it.
Yeah, this is true. All right, so those are the 14 cards I found from the set that I thought might have a glimmer of hope. And I got to tell you, they're not... nothing stood out to me as like, woo, there it is. It's a format crater.
I will say that the flavor text of Sequence Engine is reality when broken down is just math.
Oh, that's so dark. Magic's the Gathering when broken down is just math, guys.
Reality when broken down. So when you are just at your lowest possible low, life is just not going your way. You can look at Sequence Engine and understand that you're just a math problem away from sleeving up and unplayable. Okay. All
right, so let's talk about real cards that are good. And
there are so many real cards that they spoiled.
At least interesting, right?
At least interesting. They're so I am both tilted and elated that they just have a designated set called Modern Horizons whatever that has the specific design obligation to just destroy everything we know about Eternal formats.
Yep. Whoa. Yo,
Let's get into it.
First off, let's start with they just introduced Counterspell into Modern.
Also,
it's so good.
Counterspell in Modern, cool. Like, yeah, it's hilarious. It's gonna be totally fine, and nobody's gonna bat an eye.
Hilarious.
But it's funny to me because Counterspell is like not really playable in Legacy anymore.
No,
I mean maybe as like a one-up.
Yeah, you play like
exactly
a one-up in Delver. You're like I want one hard counter.
You're never playing hard Counterspell in Delver, dude.
Yeah. We used to play one in Rug every now and again. You just throw
every
it in
now and again in 2006.
No. This was when I last played the deck. I had one Counterspell main that you would occasionally just rip one off.
2006. Oof. Those are some good builds back in 2006. I'll say the best part about Counterspell coming to Modern is if you haven't seen the specialty art that they just spoiled of it, go check out the specialty art of the Counterspell that they're putting in Modern Horizons because that art is gorgeous.
Oh really? You think that's good art?
The new art, the extended art with the center character with like all the stuff imploding around them.
Oh, I hate it.
You hate all the purple, not the one with Jace, not the Jace in the center.
Oh, okay.
It's a different specialty art.
I haven't seen it yet.
Go look at like the alternate mystical archive style-esque reprint art of Counterspell. That's amazing. Do that. Go look at that one. It's incredible. Okay, let's talk about Brainstone.
Let's talk about Brainstone, indeed.
So Brainstone is just Brainstorm, except it costs a 2-mana activation cost and an artifact, which means that it took 30 years, but Trinket Mage can finally tutor Brainstorm. What'd it do? I mean, are we going to see just 8 Brainstorm decks now? Is every deck going to start at 4 Brainstorm, 4 Brainstorm, 4 Ponder?
No.
You don't think so? I want everybody who's listening to this cast, pause it for a quick sec and look up Conch Horn. So Conch Horn I'm just going to tell you what it is. Don't even look it up. It's a 2-mana artifact off the top of my dome. 2-mana artifact. It says 1 tap, draw 2 cards, put 1 back. Now, that card has been around, and that is not quite as good as Brainstorm, but it's close.
It also spiked recently.
It also spiked because the artwork is great, but it's the closest thing that a Chalice deck could have to Brainstorm that existed, right? So I'm thinking that there's maybe Chalice players are gonna like finally have a taste of what Brainstorm feels like by playing Brainstone, and they're gonna be like, "Oh my god, this is so good! This is so good!" And they're just gonna be like, "Why would we ever play Chalice when we can play Brainstorm?" And then nobody will ever play Chalice again. I think the highest value that Brainstone could provide is cluing Chalice players into the idea that they should play Brainstorm instead of Chalice.
Perhaps.
What is your take on Brainstone? It's a shrunken head ornament, right?
Yeah. It looks like I mean, I love that it's like the art is so rad because it's you don't know where it starts and stops, right? Like it'll go all the way around that like infinitely.
Right.
That's fun to me. It looks like Rock Monster from the Neverending Story, which also like that's only positive, right? Rock Crusher guy, Rock Eater, I forget his name. Mm-hmm. I only know Falcor, Atreyu, and Artax are the characters I know, right? Mm-hmm. But yeah, I like the art. Do I think it's playable? I think in the realm of the decks that you talked about, yes, but I don't think it will stop those decks from trying to play Chalice. I think you'll see this in Vintage. I think it'll find its way into Vintage.
Yeah, with only the fact that you only have 1 Brainstorm in Vintage, just being able to play this when that like is also an artifact. Yeah, 100%. This is going to show up.
All right. Well, let's what do you think? Move on to Diamond Lion.
So what's fun about Diamond Lion is that it's the continuation of them just turning really powerful cards in Modern Horizons, just and tacking them onto creatures and then not being creative with the name. Cabal Therapist comes to mind. Diamond Lion is just Lion's Eye Diamond on a 2-mana 2/2.
Yeah.
That's a cat. Do you think there's just going to be eight diamond decks? Is the decks that play Lion's Eye Diamond usually don't play creatures unless they're Bomberman?
I wouldn't rely on this as a card, because like, so the thing is like, let's say you're playing Ad Nauseam, you hit this, it costs 2, and you can't use it like immediately. That's bad, right? Like you didn't get the Lotus Petal that you were looking for. You got this 2/2 that comes into play, and then you have to wait a turn to go off. You probably lost, right? And it sapped you for two damage. If you're like, I just don't see a way. Like, you want to use your Lion's Eye Diamonds to create Storm. Am I wrong? As part of your Storm count, right?
You and I are going to take contrarian takes here. I think this is totally good. I think the difference is,
I'm interested to hear why you think it's good, because I feel like I have very valid reasons why this card is not going to see play.
Well, I think that the pattern that it plays in is, if you think about it as Lion's Eye Diamond with Suspend 1.
Sure.
But there's also a world where the fact that it's a creature means that it has a bunch more utility than not being a creature, right? I mean, the fact that this can, like, if you're playing Storm, right? This is going to be the only target for removal, right? And if it eats a removal spell, that's unfortunate. But if your deck has the space, like, I don't know what builds would look like, but if your deck has the space and you're interested in having 8 Lion's Eye Diamond, like 0 mana, 3, like Lotuses in your deck, essentially, right? Pay 2, untap. This is just 3 mana, right? I get that you have to pay the investment. It's like Suspend 1. But there is also a world where every time you attack with this, that removes part of your Storm count. So your argument saying you want to use it for Storm, there is a world where it can get you to Storm count without actually having to
when
move,
it attacks, right? It is Storm 1. Like,
how often have we seen, like, people, the Storm players pivot into a creature plan post board?
Sure. I mean,
and then they'll just, like, attack
since the beginning of time,
and, it's like when you're sandbagging stuff that plays on the stack. Yeah, you're playing stuff that plays on the stack, and they're like, all right, hit you for 2, and I'm just going to beat you down this way, and I don't have to move because the onus is on you, right? I have the edge right now. You have to make the move. The other thing that I could see this in too is, I mean, doesn't every, like, dredge deck want more LEDs?
Perhaps. Getting this into play as a dredge deck is a little tough, though.
I mean, I don't know. You're playing all the Cephalid Coliseum variants you possibly can,
right? Like, what are you going to try and put it into play with Dread?
I would be very shocked if Diamond Lion doesn't see play or just create a whole bunch of new.
I think it'll see play. I don't think it will see play in the Storm decks that we are used to.
For sure. But I mean, obviously, because Summoning Sickness changes the whole deal. But yeah. I mean, the fact that, like, I don't know.
I think it will revolutionize Modern Storm. I think people will try and make Modern Storm. Like, this is a 2-drop in a deck full of 2-drops that put you in a great position to win the game. And I think that this it's just a hedge outside of, like, how do I make this my win condition? And it just comes down to, like, a card that like gives you some amount of selection, like maybe Brainstone.
What's fun is Infernal Tutor is legal in Modern, so you do have the play Infernal Tutor, crack my Diamond Lion.
Yeah, there you go. And
it's obviously not as powerful because Diamond Lion isn't as powerful as Lion's Eye Diamond, but yes, I mean, Diamond Lion's way too powerful to not see play. I don't know what deck it goes in, but there is something to be said about this potentially being another just naturally finding a home in Bomberman. I have never played Bomberman, but I do know that Bomberman variants right now have moved over to things like Starnheim Unleashed after they make infinite mana. And if you don't have infinite mana, there's a world where just like having a bunch more LEDs to dunk into a big Angels is pretty good.
Well, the problem with this is that it has summoning sickness, so you can't go nuts with Bomberman with it.
Right, but like they're playing Starnheim Unleashed, which you have to foretell and then cast on a later turn. So they're not necessarily turned off by that.
They could play First Day of School or whatever that card is from Strixhaven, where like any creature that comes into play gets +1/+1 in haste for the rest of the turn. That's a weird card that like works in that scenario.
I want like if listeners have already thought about, I get that Diamond Lion has only been out for a day or two by the time you hear this, but if there's already a natural home that Diamond Lion slots into that we're just missing here, I mean, I've been thinking about it since I saw the spoiler. I'm like, the idea that you could just have 8 of this effect in your deck, like there's just something to be said that like discard your hand on a creature can be. I have no idea where this would just naturally fit, but if this doesn't build a new deck of some kind, that I'm just going to fear constantly. If this thing, like, if you go turn to this and I just don't have the plow, and I'm like, you kill this if it hits the board. You just don't know why. It's definitely the false cure test with this guy. It's the false cure test for sure, but also the idea that I get that you have Lions out of Diamond, but you can also just go turn 1 Ancient 2 Diamond Lion, right? Suspend 1, kill you. I don't know. I think I get that you just being able to go like turn 1 Diamond Lion, turn 2 play another just regular LED, and I have 8 mana on turn 2. I get that my hand's in the yard, but 8 mana, there's got to be something you can do with that.
Yep. We'll find out.
I mean, for 8 mana, you could just straight up flashback on Burial Rites.
You'd have 9 mana technically because you probably played another land.
If you played another land, true, yeah. So you have 9 mana on turn 2, and there's nothing we can do with that. I no way.
What about that?
You could have 10 mana. You could play 2 soul lands. You could just straight up have 10 mana on turn 2.
What about that golem I was talking about before? Does that cost 9 mana to unleash from the graveyard?
I don't know.
Get 3/3/3s?
Is there? I mean, you could let's say you have Diamond Lion. You went Soul Land, Diamond Lion, land or Soul Land LED on turn 2. Crack them. You could just have Past in Flames plus anything. Right? It's like you don't even need a bunch of dark rituals at that point. You already have so much mana. It's like if you have Soul Land, Diamond Lion, Diamond, Past in Flames, Tutor, like the game's over, right? Like,
yeah.
You could go Diamond Lion, turn 2, Burning Wish, crack, peer into the abyss. Did we break the cast? Like, I get it. Like, they could just have the turn 1 bolt, but if they just go like turn 1 ponder, or if they, you're not going to walk into a force of will, but like that's it. That seems crazy. That seems crazy that you could do that, and you'd still have enough mana to play around days if you had 2 soul lands. Or
you could duress your opponent.
I guess you wouldn't be able to have 2 soul lands because you need red mana. You get it. You get it, listeners.
Yeah,
this card's busted.
So the card I thought about was Phyrexian Triniform, and it cost 12 to encore it. So never mind. It's a 9 mana creature.
Never mind commander cards.
Anyhow, all right. Let's talk about Urza's Saga, not the set, the Magic card.
Enchantments don't tap.
This is the second, but I think this is only the second Magic card that has ever existed that is the same name as a set.
I just want everybody to know that when I said enchantments don't tap, I was channeling the SpongeBob condescension meme. So what's the other one? It's Conflux.
Conflux would be a 3.
Hour of Devastation.
Visions.
Hour of Devastation.
And Hour of Devastation. So they've been doing it a lot. I'm going to shut up then.
Wow.
All right.
You should have played around it.
So, all right. This is a enchantment land called Urza's Saga. It's also a saga. Appropriate.
Well, it's funny because it's a saga, but there's a subtype that's Urza's. So Urza's is a subtype.
Yeah, apparently.
So you can look for like
there might be an Urza's Legacy or an Urza's Destiny.
You can now name Urza's as a subtype with cards that ask for that.
Yeah.
Is it the only subtype that is possessive?
Perhaps.
Because it's not. It's a saga, and it's just playing on the name. It's an enchantment land hyphen.
What if we do like a time spiral kind of situation, and we do like Mishra's saga, where it's like the other brother wins, and then they do. That's what's gonna happen. Quote me in 20 years, guys. We're gonna have a whole weird thing, and then this conversation will bear fruit.
You heard it here first. Revisionist history of the Brothers' War coming to a Magic set near you.
Yep.
So I think this is. I mean, I could be wrong. I haven't like tried to find if there's another possessive subtype yet, but this might be a first. It's the first enchantment land, and it's the first possessive subtype.
All right. So
what does it do?
When it comes into play as a saga, first off, it costs 0 because it's a land. When it comes into play as a saga, you put one thing on it, one lore counter, and it gets tap this for a colorless mana. Simple. The second turn, it gets Urza's Saga gains 2 and tap, 2 colorless and tap, create a colorless construct. Create a construct, basically. It gets +1+. It gets Keldon Warlord for all of your artifacts.
It is like construct. It's 0/0 with power equal to the number of artifacts you control.
And then the third one is search your library for an artifact card with 0 or 1 mana as its cost, and put it into the battle. Put onto the battlefield, then shuffle.
So what's fun about this card is that if you play it on turn 1, it taps for mana, but then on turn 2, you won't have the mana unless you play a soul land to actually get the construct, because you won't have 2 tap. So there's some tension there, but this so far the most busted thing I can think of with this card that is if you have a Lotus Bloom in your deck, it is just a turn cycle faster than if you suspended Lotus Bloom. So suspend Lotus Bloom.
I'm so disappointed. I'm so disappointed in you, Phil. So disappointed.
Is there something more busted than this? Just is
what
a Lotus?
Great artifact do we know that costs 1 mana?
There are many. Brainstone.
Yep. What? Brainstone. Yeah, get a Brainstone. What about Phyrexian Dreadnought?
Dude, you're trying to tell me you want to play Urza's Saga so you want to tutor up a Dreadnought and stifle it on turn 3?
Yes.
Bro.
I'm just saying here, you can play this in your deck and it does the thing.
Far be it from me to poo-poo a Phyrexian Dreadnought strategy.
I'm just saying, you didn't even talk about it, man.
If you're playing Urza's Saga to stifle a Dreadnought, I think we've missed the boat. I think
we've lost the plot. I understand.
I mean, search your library for an artifact for 0 mana, 1 or less, and put it on, or 0 or 1, and put it onto the battlefield. I mean, you can just tutor a Chalice for 0. I mean, I don't know. It's got to be Lotus Bloom, right?
Yeah.
What's the other thing that you're trying to do?
I besides from that, I don't know. So okay, so that's I mean, do you have anything else to talk about with Urza's Saga? Because I want to get to this Dungeons and Dragons set.
I really do think that the most interesting part of Urza's Saga, aside from all the busted shit it's going to do in Vintage, is the fact that it's the first possessive subtype. Okay, let's move on.
All right. Let's talk about Tiamat, Legendary Dragon, God, flying, 7/7. It costs 7 mana. It's a Wooburg +2. When it enters the battlefield, if you cast it, search your library for up to 5 dragon cards not named Tiamat. Put them into your hand. This card's mono unplayable, but it is a rad card. It's Tiamat from the Dungeons and Dragons cartoon, from Babylonian mythology, from Faerun, the Forgotten Realms.
What I want to know is, are 5-color EDH dragon players Like
I'm right here. I'm right here.
I mean, I get that there's a lot of them. I get people love dragons. I get that people want to play 5 colors with their dragons, but there are so many 5-color do an insane card advantage thing dragons. That's like, how do you decide? None of them really have anything unique about them.
I'm going to tell you,
there are so many 5-color dragons that are just like, play this, get more dragons. But there's like nothing particular about the thing that it's just like have more dragons. I'm
gonna tell you how this works, right? So if you're a dragon player, you play 1 or 2 commanders. I like Scion of the Ur Dragon as opposed to the Ur Dragon myself.
Isn't that the Eminence Dragon that just gives you all the things for free if it's a
that's the Ur Dragon. So what I like to do is I play Scion of the Ur Dragon, which is it just costs
tutor for a dragon.
And you can pay 2 to tutor. It changes it into a dragon and puts that dragon into the graveyard. So a lot of times what you do is you'll do that with like Atraxa, the one that like double strikes all your dragons, or I like to be a dick and I'll cast it with OG Nicol Bolas and like make my opponent discard his entire hand because that's hilarious. Or you can make it the Ur Dragon. The Ur Dragon says whenever it attacks or any dragon attacks, you can draw that number of cards and then put any number of that number of permanents into play.
Yeah. So what you just said to me is like all of these dragons all do the same thing.
Perhaps, yeah. I mean, the idea here is you just have a deck full of big giant monsters, and if you live long enough, like it's die the hero or become the dragon, my friend.
So are EDH dragon decks just like they all have all of these, and then you just randomly pull one out, and you're like, I guess my commander for this game is going to be this one because they all are doing the exact thing. Like this one just being, I don't know much about Dungeons and Dragons, and by not much I mean nothing. So when you say that this is a very well-known character that they're using to sell this set on the first spoiler, and that this is a big deal, and it's a dragon god, I couldn't tell you anything about this card that differentiates it from any of the other dragon cards just because it tutors 5 cards.
So yeah, I agree. If I were to have created Tiamat, it would not have done this.
Does Tiamat is the story of Tiamat that he just spawns more dragons?
Tiamat is the mother of dragons. Literally original, the OG dragon, the original dragon.
So this design actually is flavorful for what it does.
Yes, yeah. And if you look at it, it is its head is one of each of the chromatic dragons. Chromatic dragons are evil. Metallic dragons are good. That's something to know. So this means we'll probably get Bahamut. Bahamut being the good dragon god. That is the metallic dragons. But to that end, for people listening for legacy purposes, this card will not see play.
So you're telling me that Tiamat and what's the other one? Bahamut.
Yeah. So you played your Final Fantasy VII. Come on.
So essentially what you're telling me is the dragon with lots of colors is not good, and the monochromatic or dragon without colors is good.
So those colors, they technically still have colors, but it's metal colors. So like silver dragon, gold dragon, copper dragon.
So you're saying that functionally, it's exactly Nicol Bolas and Ugin.
Yes. Yeah, but functionally, yes. But who ripped off who, huh?
That's true. Who did?
I don't know. I'm just saying that this is technically D&D ripped off Babylonian mythology. So, we can go back 3,000 years.
I interpreted your who ripped off who as you taking a supportive stance towards Bolas becoming an authoritarian dictator.
No.
Okay, cool. We're both on the same side of that.
We should talk about Vorpal Sword.
I assume that also has some lore within Dungeons and Dragons as being the end-all be-all weapons. This is the Black Blade of...
Yeah. So a Vorpal Sword. A lot of you know, probably, because we're all nerds here, the Monty Python, the Holy Grail. Do you know what the bunny is called?
No, I do not.
So the bunny, colloquially, is called the Vorpal Bunny. And that's because he cuts heads off.
I see.
So the Vorpal Sword was this, like, OG D&D item that would like always, if you rolled a natural 20, it would automatically kill your opponent by lopping his head off.
Okay, so the flavor of you spending 10 mana to while you're and then hitting to kill a player is flavorful. That makes sense.
That makes I'm very happy with the design. I would it see play? I don't know. Like 1 mana for +2 death touch.
It will not see play.
Not great. That said, I love the flavor here. Let's look at Prosperous Innkeeper. There's only a couple cards that are spoiled thus far, and I just want to see what their flavor is looking for here. When it comes to play, create a treasure token. It's a 2-mana 1/1. Whenever another creature dies under the battle.
No, whenever another creature enters the battlefield, under your control, you gain a life. It's a Soul Sister that creates a treasure token. It's 2 mana. Tell me, are halflings a creature type in Dungeons and Dragons?
Halflings are. Hobbits are not.
So a halfling is a hobbit,
yes.
But in this case, it's a halfling.
Yeah, there are no vice versa halflings, hobbits, and Dungeons and Dragons or Tolkien.
Yeah, I was like, there's no way they just created a new. They created a new subtype. That was like, it must be okay. So expect halflings. So halflings. What is
for sure?
Halflings are just exactly like hobbits.
Yeah, they're dexterous, like not dwarves. They're like dexterous little people. That generally like it being an innkeeper is a classic example of like a job that a halfling could have, because they're all about that comfort, but they also like have a tendency to not be corruptible, and also have like a childlike sense of wonder. They love adventure. You, dude,
Prosperous Innkeeper is it certainly is. These effects are showing that business is booming. Create a treasure.
Every time a creature comes into play, he should also get a treasure, shouldn't he? Like
he should get a treasure, life, man.
Yeah,
he's
dude,
buying the drinks for the crew.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk about Portable Hole. Everybody's favorite place to keep all their gear.
Portable Hole is you. Go ahead. You can read it.
Yeah. So it's an artifact, and it costs 1 white mana. And it says when Portable Hole enters the battlefield, exile target land permanent that an opponent controls with mana value 2 or less until it leaves the battlefield.
This is legacy playable. This is so good.
You like this?
This is really good.
This is like a Wile E. Coyote card to me.
This card, like, I get that. Like, when I read Portable Hole, like, I could only think of porta potty. I'm never gonna not like it's
toss them in the toilet.
It's just so unfortunate that was my first reaction seeing this card.
You're not a D&D player, so that's totally okay.
This card is great. 1 mana non-land permanent with mana value 2 or less. So you're telling me that this is a removal spell for all the creatures that are going to try and kill me, like in the early game when I'm trying to develop, but also it's a main deckable answer to Sylvan Library? Let's go.
Yeah, it's non-land permanent. Yeah.
This card's great.
All right, so let's move on to only talking about this.
Trinket Mage Miracles is going to be a thing. I can tutor for a brainstorm. I can tutor for a removal spell. This is so good.
You can get it with your Urza Saga, dude.
Dude, I am pulling Trinket Mages out of the box right after this cast is done. I suggest you readers do the same. By readers, I mean listeners.
Oh, actually, you cannot get it with Urza Saga because it says mana cost of 0 or 1 generic mana.
Oh, it's specifically those mana costs.
Yeah, weird. I think that my ruling is correct there. I might be wrong.
Yeah, you're right. It's mana cost, not mana value.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about one of the most iconic D&D spells that hasn't been yet created. I'm talking about Fireball is the one that has already been created. Power Word Kill. They missed a colon in here. I'm pretty upset about that. It should be Power Word Kill.
I wonder if that's intentional or not.
It's not. No, somebody didn't know. That's terrible.
Wow.
Get it together. That's why I should have worked on this set.
Wow. Get it together.
So upsetting. Anyhow, destroy target non-angel, non-demon, non-devil, non-dragon creature. This is a classic nod to killing corporeal creatures. and not and you can't kill like creatures over a certain level with power word kill. Obviously, a spell that could just outright kill someone's pretty powerful in a role playing game where like you could be like, I'm the evil wizard, and you're like, haha, you're dead. Zap.
I wonder what it would take for a Doomblade variant. Like, how wide of a net does the Doomblade variant have to be for it to be legacy playable? Like, this is, in legacy at least, this is kill
Doomblade.
Target creature. This is kill any creature. This
like, what are you gonna hit somebody's angel token off of a miracle?
Oh no! You want to know why? Actually, this card is unplayable. Oh. Fairy dragon. Sprite dragon's a fairy dragon.
And is it an angel? Oh
no, it's a dragon.
Oh, that's fine.
No, whatever. It doesn't. You can't. You can never play this if Sprite Dragon is seeing play in the best deck. There's no way. For a second, I was like, this card is just the closest thing to 2-mana destroy target creature that they've printed ever, and it's actually not as good as like Heartless Act or whatever it was.
Yeah.
But Heartless Act is also unplayable because Sprite Dragon.
Yeah.
Sprite Dragon just plays around all this.
Sprite Dragon, you total jerk.
Man, you want to they go, okay, well, I can't power word kill it. I'm going to Heartless act it. And then you're like, no, I'm going to cast a spell, put a counter on it.
They're like, hold on, Daze.
Yeah, jeez, man. Sprite Dragon.
Daze, you had the mana to pay for it.
Just too good. These basic lands look good.
The basic lands look pretty interesting. There's some like cool flavor text. That's lands with flavor text. I don't think I've ever seen that before.
Dude, I didn't expect to get old border cards again, just like freely. I thought they were just going to sandbag that for like a yearly set to make bank.
Oh, they just know now that like what they need to do to make money is appeal to people who have the money to spend it on cards that they want to see. Like physically see, and create sets for people that aren't totally enfranchised into Magic yet, and then also like create stuff for new people to get into.
I mean, this is when I saw the fetches in Old Border, I looked at them and went, man, I have owned my fetches for so long.
Right.
I own altered fetches. I love my altered fetches. And now I'm going to look at my altered fetches and be like, but they don't have the Old Border.
Not good enough. Yeah.
And I'm just like, dude, I spent so much money on those fetches when I got them. Like, I got them a long time ago, but fetches were always expensive. And I'm just looking at these cards being like, how dare you, Wizards? How dare you make me want to spend so much money on something I already own? It's like, hey, you paid rent for this house. How would you like to pay rent? It's like, dude. It's so pretty. It's just so pretty.
Well, I think we're like an hour and a half in. I think this is a good point to stop. We've talked about all the cards that we have to talk about thus far.
Portable Hole.
Portable Hole.
God, Portable Hole. Let's go.
All right. Well, as always, you can support us at our Patreon at patreon.com/eternaldurdles. We've got some stuff in the works. We're going to get some video going again, try and get a YouTube channel going. So that money's actually going to go to like helping us get editors and stuff like that. So, hook us up, please, if you want to see this cast grow, and I'd like to myself.
Guys, everybody listening, we are the Portable Hole of Legacy Podcast. we are playable. We are going to deal with Sylvan Library. God, that card's so good.
All right. Well, have a good one, everybody.